Up, guys. Well, your knife, Ben, is a bit too small, as well as some others of you. I was recently looking at a Facebook discussion where they were talking about, what characteristics just totally put you off, make you not like a knife. And someone said, a knife with a blade over 3 inches is just a hard pass. And I was like, who is this guy and what does he do with his knives? And my initial thought is, well, probably nothing because they're all too small. But that's what I wanted to talk with you guys about today. So I've got this little guy to sort of stand in. It's a very popular knife, and I sort of get it. I like the design for sure, and I do kind of have this affinity for some of the cuter knives that are out there, and I love the idea of having a non-threatening folding knife that you could give to someone, or that can hopefully sort of transition someone and get them into the knife hobby. I really like all of that stuff. And this particular knife, I think it's a great design. I love the blade shape. I love just the balance of this design. Right, it's a really nearly perfect EDC design. And so I've got to give Ben credit. He really thought out what he wanted and came up with something that I think is really good. However, it's too small. Well, this needs to have a 3.5 inch blade, and it needs to have a 4 inch handle or so. Doesn't need to be massive, like it doesn't need to be way bigger, but 1 inch bigger, right, would make a huge difference. Just a half inch on both ends would be vastly significant. So Ben, please, if you're watching this, I would love to see a Banter XL that it was only, even if it was only 7.5 inches or 7.75 inches, that would be really spectacular. And I'm going to talk about why in just a couple of minutes, because I got this knife and I was playing with it and using it a little bit around the house. And, over and over again, I was struck just by the fact that its size makes it a little less utilitarian than it could be. And that got me wondering, the people who like these smaller knives, what do you do with your knives? What is it that you can get done with a knife of this size? Right? I feel like it's a little too small to be really comfortable. I wouldn't want to do any like long hard cutting task with this because I feel like my hand would fatigue too quickly. I wouldn't want to be cutting up like apples and oranges with it because the blade length, especially when you subtract the thumb stud here, won't reach across. If you think an apple is about the size of my fist, right? I actually can't, I can just, well, no, see, I can't really cut a whole apple in half if I wanted to do that. And my kids do still, they're not, they don't need them cut up really small, but they still prefer apple slices to the full size. And sometimes I even want an apple slice. And so, you know, I've got to get a bigger knife in order to do that. Now, I'm going to come back to a couple other points on this particular knife, but I want to sort of bring in some other small knives where the size in some way limits utility. And yes, I'm including this even though it's longer than the Banter, it's longer than the Gemini, it's still limited by its size because it's so thin. Now, I know that's a specific reason. This is, by the way, the CRKT CEO. Um, so here's the thing. I personally find it a little difficult to get a lot done. Sure, you can open an envelope, you can do some small around the office type of stuff, but a lot of cutting tasks are restricted. And here's my reasoning. And other people have made this argument before, so I don't want to claim it as my own. And I think even I've probably mentioned this in videos before. A larger knife, okay, something like the Shredder from Civivi. I love this knife, but it can do anything that all of these knives can do. But the opposite is not true. They can't do everything it can do. And so my thought is, why not go with a larger knife that's bigger, that gives you more comfort in hand, gives you more confidence for, various tasks, allows you even to have that cutting tool. If you want to use this like a small knife, you definitely can. But, now I can easily cut that apple in half. All right. I can easily get some other things done. And I want to demonstrate. I think the main thing that usually bugs me about small knives is the feel in hand. So I want to pull these guys out of the way and just do a little sort of comparison here. I've just rolled up some cardboard. I'm not going to cut through this. I just want to have something that I can push on. So, with this knife, what happens is because the handle is a little shorter, I end up putting a ton of force on my thumb. If I move to a hammer grip, it's hard to get a lot of leverage behind my cut. Where if I switch over to the shredder, now I feel like, yeah, I could really bear down. I could put a ton of force behind this if I needed to. Again, this is just for, I'm not actually going to be doing any cutting in this video. I just wanted something to push on that I could, that would bear some weight without causing any damage to anything. So again, the CEO, for a different reason, this knife, again, doesn't allow me, if I push down really hard, it gets uncomfortable quickly. All right. And that's largely because its size in this direction. Even the Banter suffers from this same problem. Because I can't get a really good solid grip on it, it feels like I wouldn't want to do this for a long time. Could I cut this piece of cardboard with a Banter? Of course I could. I can definitely get the job done, but I'm just not as comfortable doing it as I would be with something bigger. So this is the full size Feldspar. Now, yeah, I've got a lot more leverage. I can really get a hold of this and I can really bear down and do some serious work if I needed to. To a greater extent, this is true with the Amalgam, which I love largely for ergonomic reasons. This is really, really hand filling and really allows me to bear down and get some work done. Not to mention, again, I gain all that extra cutting edge over some of these smaller knives. All right. Now, I'm not suggesting that I need a ton of cutting edge all the time. This is the Civivi Dogma, and it's definitely on the smallish side, but the way they've designed this handle gives me lots of real estate, and even the angle of it gives me more leverage toward the bottom of my hand, so I can really get some force behind my cutting with this knife. So I brought this knife in purposely to point out that you can do a small-ish knife. Now let me move some of the larger stuff out of the way, because I did want to bring in a couple of examples of knives that aren't super big, but offer, but don't fall into some of the same traps as a smaller knife. The Feldspar almost qualifies. It's not a huge knife, but even smaller than that, I've got a couple of knives. The Artisan Arroyo here and the Civivi Dogma. The Gemini, it's funny because it's not really that small of a knife. It's the same size as the Arroyo, so it's on the smallish end, but it doesn't have great handle real estate. I would love to just move everything this way a little bit and it would end up in this same category. But if I take these two knives, right, one, the amount of cutting edge is really good. I can pretty well reach across my whole hand if I'm imagining, if I use my hand as the size of an apple, where I can almost do it with the Gemini, which is great. With the Dogma, it becomes pretty easy. You can see I've even got a little bit past there. Again, if we go back to the Banter, I can't quite reach. I'm losing a little. So the reach is definitely part of the discussion here, but the other part of the discussion that these two knives, the Dogma and the Arroyo, kind of bring into play are they're small-ish, okay, but the handle design allows me to get a full four-finger grip to get really a hold of this knife and now be able to really take on a hard cutting task, to feel like I've really got something substantial and be prepared to do any kind of task that may have to get done. So look, I don't want people to take this video the wrong way. I'm just being I'm being a little bit facetious here, but I'm being also just a tiny bit, in every joke there's a grain of truth. So I really do find that these smaller knives, well, I often appreciate the design, and certainly with this one, I'm gonna, in a full review, I'm gonna outline all of the different points that I absolutely love about the Banter, because there's a lot of things that are really, really well done. That said, I find myself feeling limited by its size for two reasons. One, the feel in hand, right? The amount of leverage that I feel like I can get behind my cuts, and the lack of reach that I have with the blade length. So if you're out there watching this and you carry a small knife, go ahead and call me an idiot down in the comments. Defend yourself. I wish you would. Until, maybe you guys will convince me. Maybe by the end of reading the comment section of this video, I'll post all of my larger knives for sale and move into only carrying knives that are like 7 inches or under. By the way, I will finish off really quickly just by describing the Banter is on the smaller end even of some of my smaller knives. And I feel like if you're going to something like this, you'd probably be just as well off with like a Spyderco Dragonfly or something that's only 2 finger, but has 2 or 3 finger, but has pretty good ergonomics. So this is 6.5 inches overall, 2 7/8 on the blade, 3 5/8 closed. Okay, so that's this dimension here. All right, 3 inches of grip area, which is probably the main thing that we're talking about in this video. All right. And I have to say, very attractive knife. I love the materials choices. I love the details that are done right here. By the way, fairly thin blade stock on this with a medium flat grind, which I think does really bode well for EDC. This blade design is like the perfect balance between toughness and durability and slicing power. So I've got to say, I'm getting a little, I'm getting off into a more of a review discussion here, but I have to get back to my main point, which is, this knife, it is really well made. It's just a bit small, and many knives are a bit small. And, again, if you're only carrying in an office, if you don't need your knife for much on a given day, then I think it's probably fine. But if you use your knives for a little more sort of above and beyond the Call of Duty type of stuff, I just don't think a small knife cuts it. Thanks for watching. Let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out Southern Edge Knife Works. You can save 15% off this or a bunch of other stuff over there. We'll talk to you soon.